All right, guys, thanks for joining us today. This, of course, is Paul Wilson, and you're listening to the Diesel Performance Podcast. Chris Emke is going to come into the show a little bit later when we interview our guest star, sponsored by Calibrated Power, and that's going to be our talk with Brad Sankey, who just recently completed his Diesel Power Challenge 2019 competition. He was a real competitor there. He laid it down in the sled pull, and we're going to talk to him all about his old rusty LLY and what it was like being out in Denver competing with a whole lot of high horsepower trucks. To kick it off today, though, I wanted to give a shout out to WC Fab for sponsoring our From Facebook segment. Today, I'm going to be reading off a message from Denny Dave. Dave, well, here's what he says. G'day, guys. I only just discovered your podcast last week and have listened to shitloads of episodes at work in the tractor. I found you guys whilst looking for info on tuning the 2008 QSB 6.7 in my 1984 F-250 two-wheel drive ambulance. I live in Denaquilian? I don't know. Something. I live in Australia, and there's fuck all in the way of tuning diesels in my area. Any suggestions on tuning hardware, software that is actually usable on this motor, or am I kidding myself? Love your show, and thanks for any advice. I'll send some pics of the Ambo, which is used as a camper van out in the Outback Desert. Regards, Dave. Guys, I'm going to post some of these pictures on our Facebook page so you guys can take a look at it. It's definitely something every one of our listeners wants to drive at least once. I let Denny know on this one, hey man, yeah, we do tune the 2008 QSB 6.7. We use our power manager on it and potentially our HD EFI Live AutoCal, just depending on what we're able to get the stock read with and what's going to be best for the customer. So there's a lot of applications on those. I did not realize outside of the U.S., apparently they had them in ambulances. Hey, if you guys got crazy pictures of wild vehicles that most people didn't know existed with a diesel, send them my way. That's Paul at DuramaxTuner.com, or hell, just jump on over to our Facebook page and post up a picture of craziest two-wheel drive. We'll make sure we share it and promote it and kind of get it out there as well. We'd love to see them. Speaking of crazy cool stuff, Exergy is bringing us our diesel story of the week. This story actually comes right from our shop. One of our guys recently started working on his LML, and he's a tech. I think he's going to be getting involved in some of the more action out in front with the group this year over the summer sled pulling. But he's got a 2013 LML. We've done some pictures. We've done some videos with the truck before. It's a beautiful quad cab short bed. Just nice looking truck. I can't remember the trim level off the top of my head. Anyways, as he started working on it, he had to decide, just even being an employee and being able to do the work himself, where was he going to spend his budget first? And it's something that Mike and I had a chance to talk a little bit about. It was really interesting because his first instinct was, I got tuning, I need a transmission. And he ended up going that way. But along the route, I really was a big proponent of the fuel system. I said, look at a 10 mil CP4. Even if we're going to run stock injectors and a stock turbo, which we're not in the long run, but for right now we are. Hey man, there's a lot of benefit of having something that reliable and that robust in the engine bay as opposed to jumping right into the built transmission. Both are weak points. If either one of them goes, it could be a really expensive day. So it's hard to say one's necessarily more of a more required than the other. I'd say they're pretty close in equality. But yeah, it was an interesting time talking to Mike about what it was like to put that transmission in there, what it was like to go and do the CP4. He's also done a turbo and some other things since then, lift pump and all of that. So really nice truck. We're hoping to see that out having some more attention here over the summer, like I said, sled pulling. All right, guys. Well, I'll tell you what, I've held you up long enough. Real quick before we dive into it, like I said, Calibrated Power always sponsors our special guest segment. Duramax Tuner sponsors our show. If you guys have not jumped on the Duramax Tuner YouTube channel, jump on and check out the Diesel Insights video talking about soot accumulation. Even if you're not into emissions equipment, that's fine. That's cool. I think there's a lot of really great information there that diesel truck owners are going to love. So make sure you jump on and check that out. For now, I will kick it over to myself and Chris interviewing Brad Sankey. All right, guys, and now for my favorite portion of the show, we're going to get into the Calibrated Power presents our special guest. And today we do have a returning special guest, Brad Sankey, who just went to Diesel Power Challenge to compete at DPC 2019. Brad, how the hell are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
So the first thing I want to ask here, I'm just going to dive into it, right? So you had a month to prepare. You're going to the event. How many hours was it to get there?
To drive there, it was, according to GPS, was 15 hours, 15 and a half hours. It took us about 17 with fuel stops and whatnot.
You drove straight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I think we only rotated twice.
Well, so let's dive into it. Day one, which is Sunday, right? That's the day everyone meets in the parking lot. Checking in. What was it like? Have you been to the Colorado before? Like, what were your initial, reactions to being there?
So I was in Colorado once before for all of 2 hours.
Okay.
So long story, but getting there on Sunday, it was very nice. The scenery is fantastic. What I didn't expect was how much the humidity changed during the day. So it's super humid in the morning, and then towards the end of the afternoon, it would be quite dry. That was unexpected.
Sure, absolutely. And hey, that first day getting in, you're just doing check-in, so you go in the parking lot, they pull any stickers you have off of your truck, you get stickered up, and then we all headed over to the ATS facility. What'd you think of that ATS facility?
Oh, that facility is something else. I never quite understood how much Clint and his team over there do in-house. More so kind of went into it thinking, oh yeah, they in quotes, build turbos. They just put their own wheel and cover in them. No, they do a lot of the castings themselves, and it's not something that I actually anticipated.
Yeah, it's an impressive facility. So I know on that day they took us around. They gave us this awesome tour. There was a lot of really standout. I know the Foundry definitely caught my eye, but not a lot of action on day one. So day two, we roll onto the dyno to do MPG testing. Brad, the truck performed well. You didn't have a lot of violations. Not the world's greatest results, though, at the end of it all. What did it feel like to be on there doing the MPG testing for what essentially I think most guys were like about a 20-minute run?
Yeah, it actually ended up being, someone timed it like 21 minutes and 45 seconds, something like that.
Yeah.
We ended up actually doing quite well in the overall consumption side of it, but I had 8 penalties.
That's right.
Yep. So we did really good in the actual consumption. I had one of the lower actual consumptions, but had 8 violations.
Gotcha.
So what that I think stemmed from is we definitely drew the short end of the stick. We got to watch Jaron go in the ATS shop truck there, and we were first. So the big single big stall truck from Wisconsin was first on the dyno and for the fuel economy test, and that definitely didn't give us much opportunity to watch how other competitors were modulating the throttle and getting up on the graph and following it. So if you go and you actually look at, let's say most of my violations probably happened in the first 5 minutes.
Okay.
Because that test is grueling. It's a small hill to start with, and it goes into like a simulated up to like 65 mile an hour. I don't want to call it like a hill climb, but it's a heavily loaded section. I did not think the truck would make it through the entire test, to be really honest. I figured it would have got hot. I would have figured coolant temps. I wasn't too worried about coolant temp overall. I was more so worried about trans fluid temp running first, second. I think we clipped third for about 30 seconds. It was mostly first and second gear, winding the thing all the way out. With that 3400 stall being unlocked, it was definitely making some heat.
Absolutely, man. And hey, you made it through it. It was a tough final result. Like you said, you guys had started off fairly strong. Really hard to gauge how much throttle to give it, or did you need to get up on top of some of those hills. We could see guys where they were laying into it, and I just imagine watching a data log where like they're at 20% throttle, and all of a sudden they jump it to like 50% throttle, and realize, oh shit, that's not enough. And then they really lay on it and go all the way to the floor, and then that's too much. They overshoot it and then come back. It's really hard to gauge because it's not just like feeling of driving on the road and maintaining a consistent speed.
For any of the listeners out there, granted I haven't been to ATS's facility to see this test firsthand, but just thinking about a big turbocharger truck and driving it on the street, it's hard to grasp that just, being on the road and operating the truck. And I know for you, Brad, you've had a lot of experience driving this truck with a big single, but that still the preparation, just really isn't there, especially when you're going up a load or going up a hill where the truck's going to get loaded onto, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So, it's tricky to drive a big single truck in general.
Oh yeah, and it's way different when you don't actually see, trees and other cars whizzing by you. You're watching a screen out the driver's side window of your pickup. And Paul, you were there. There's one portion on that second big hill where my brain was definitely not in it. And instead of unlocking the converter, I just decided to give her a foot full of throttle, and it pretty much smoked the room out then. So that definitely made it interesting, because then your eyes hurt the whole rest of the 20 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever's left.
Yeah, and then also there's a portion of time where I imagine you couldn't even see the screen through the smoke. It got so.
No, not really, because we melted within the first, I would say, probably 5 minutes. We melted the called the soot collector, the piece that came down to go to their exhaust ducting that was sitting over the stack. That melted within probably 5 minutes.
Yeah, and then it was off the rest of the day. Nobody could run it.
Yep.
They just had all of the ports in the dyno bay with like open, and then just trying to suck the exhaust out from everywhere. Yeah.
Richard Coker went second with a hood stack, and I melted it with a stack in the box. He was running a set of compounds and melted it within the same spot I melted it. Coming up on that hill, it really loads the truck hard, and there was no way around it.
Absolutely. But hey, we got through that test, and then we came into day 3 where we're just running for peak power. You get a chance to have up to 3 runs in 30 minutes. You are literally just going for your best combined numbers. They add up the horsepower and the torque. Where did you go throughout the day, Brad? Refresh my memory.
So I think we were fourth or 6th running order. And then I think we ended up at the end of the day at 7th position. And that says something, because the truck made 1,081 horsepower uncorrected at 1,778 foot-pounds at like 5,800 feet. And it would have made more if I'd let my balls drop a bit and put the bigger nitrous jets in.
How much nitrous were you running for that?
So the first pull, I couldn't even get the truck into the test window. I couldn't get enough boost to actually get through the test window. The second pull, where it actually started the test, we ran a single 41 jet, and that made like 860. So then for the second test, I turned on my actual progressive controller, and that had a single 88 jet, and that's when it made 1081. So for that run, I had the 41 jet on a button, and I held that son of a bitch whole way through the test window, and then the 88 jet came on 2 seconds after going to wide open, so it hit right around 2,900, 3,000 RPM. So it wasn't a ton of nitrous, compared to everybody else in the field that actually was spraying their trucks. That was one of the lower amounts used.
Sure. And still came out being one of the 7 trucks over 1,000 horsepower. Which is the first time that's ever happened at DPC. Also, setting 1,000 horsepower uncorrected at roughly 5,000 foot of elevation, single charger. Most of the other guys in the competition obviously all running twin kits, expecting to be able to kind of help with the truck essentially at that power level, still stay cool. Brad's doing it all on a single S480 sled pull turbo.
Yeah.
Now,
I was not expecting that.
Now, let me ask you this. I mean, going into this, when we had you on the podcast prior, talking about would you set something up different with the truck, change setup, so on and so forth. And then day one is your MPG test. And there's no denying that the big turbocharger was not in your favor. And then day three on the dyno, you're operating on the dyno and you're using nitrous to get the turbocharger to come into motion. We know what the truck's capabilities are even at sea level, and it's not the easiest thing to operate. Did you have a second thought in your head at that point that, man, maybe I should have done compounds or done something a little smaller, or were you pretty much sold on the way you brought the truck there?
Oh, God, yeah. If I were doing it again, it would have been, it would be a set of S300, S400 compounds.
Okay.
The big single is awesome. It's so much fun when that thing lights, but the key word is when it lights.
Right.
So to make over, to make almost 1,100 horsepower, we only made 54 pounds of boost.
Oh, wow.
That's all the thing made. And I've seen, down here on the street, I've seen 60, 65 on fuel. So
it just goes to show the difference there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even tapping the injectors for all they've got yet. I mean, it's on a very, very conservative pulse width.
Now, as this test came up, one of the other things I noticed is most guys out at DPC had never operated a truck while it's strapped onto the dyno before. Chris, you and I have talked about this at length at other interviews. Brad, what is something that you would tell somebody who's brand new to running a dyno, since I think you have all 3 passes under your belt now?
I would say definitely set the test window conservative. Because that was one thing that was kind of a gray area in the rules, is it said, you get 3 pulls on the dyno. The rules did state once you pick a gear, that's the gear you're in for all 3 runs, which is fine. But definitely if you think your turbo spool's at, let's say 2,200 RPM, add 200 to 400 RPM. It's just based on coming from sea level to going to Denver and trying to actually make power there. It's a nightmare.
No, I would definitely have to say, having trucks on our dyno and the amount of time I've spent here and going to different dyno events, when a dyno operator asks the end user, the owner of the truck, hey, where do you want the RPM? Like for us, it's a little different. We know what RPM window to run in, but you're having the opportunity to choose that. And you really don't think about when you're driving the truck on the street, okay, when does the truck come to life? When is the truck responsive? You don't think about that sometimes.
Yeah.
So then you have like, I don't know, and then it kind of screws everything up.
I don't know how many guys have been here, run their trucks on the dyno, come down to the other end of the building, and I'm talking to them outside, and I'm like, oh, where'd your truck make peak power? And they're like,
right.
At the top of the power curve.
Yeah.
Like most guys, even after a dyno run, still have no idea what RPM their truck made absolute final peak power. So knowing that, I think, is definitely that's a good heads up there. Yeah. Now, the dyno is something you can prepare for. 8th mile trailer tow or 8th mile trailer race, not really something guys can go and practice at least not safely.
I mean, anything's possible, Paul. Come on.
But Brad, there are no laws in Mexico. So.
But Brad, you have trailer, towing experience, and you have, the sled pulling background. So was this much of a challenge for you? Like, tell me about that day. What did that experience feel like?
So I wasn't horribly worried going into anything at the drag strip. I was definitely a little concerned with the actual quarter mile heads up racing, but the 8th mile trailer tow, I more so was worried that I was going to break the truck. From that standpoint of, ever since I put a built motor in the truck, I've never launched it on the street at all in 4-wheel drive, ever.
What?
I have not once done it. It's always... It scared me to the point where I didn't want to break something not near a place that I could fix it.
Okay. So then you just do a 4-wheel drive launch in front of the shop that you would go to fix it, right?
Essentially we went a couple miles out on the back road.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it's something I've never, I don't want to say never done, but not something I do regularly with the truck. I mean, it's mainly built as a puller and a hot street toy. So going into that, the plan was just to leave soft because I think the second guy up, one of the first couple people, sheared the slide collar in his front diff and then grenaded the actuator, and it was a Billy Hartzell in his Duramax.
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to avoid. I didn't want to leave the line hard, but I also didn't realize how long it was going to take for the 480 to actually light, even with leaving it 10, 15 pounds of boost.
So what was that like?
So
what was that like leaving at the line, loading the truck up, and then going into it? Did it build up 10, 15 pounds, and then once it was against the truck, it kind of fell off, or did it maintain that and it just took a while to build up?
Real quick background before you answer that, Brad. Before all of this started, the track officials and KJ said, okay, has anybody not raced before? Only one guy raised his hand. Brad Sankey.
That was me. I've never was on a drag strip until I went to Denver.
Okay.
That was the first time I'd gone to a drag strip. So staging was pretty simple. We used a four high second gear trans tune. So I had all the load I needed to spool the charger. It's just when I left, I rolled out easier because I thought the truck was going to spool. Not like my 475 did, but I figured it was going to come up a little quicker than it did. That's inexperience on my part. But once it lit, man, we ended up, we were one of the slower ETs, but we had the second fastest mile an hour by less than 1 mile an hour.
Wow.
So it picked it up on the back half. And if, Paul, I sent you the data log, if you want to show Chris, you can see where I locked the converter, and it lost like 18 pounds of boost.
Oh.
15, 18 pounds of boost. You can see it. It locked the converter, and it almost snuffed out, so I reached over and grabbed the nitrous button. And that was a single 62 jet, and it woke the truck right back up, and it freight trained to the end.
What do you think, Chris? Can we rig up a single switch that you can lock the converter and spray nitrous at the same time?
I mean, I would have. I mean, granted, one of the things that we joke around about, me and my buddy, when we go to the track, like with the cars, the cars that we deal with, they're known for like lack of oil pressure, right?
Yeah.
So a couple years ago, a buddy of mine had one of the cars at the track, and the car lost oil pressure, and he stayed in it. And I'm like, you have the gauge sitting right there. You see the car's dropping oil pressure back out of it. In the cockpit when you're going, you don't look at anything. You're just your eyes on the prize. Forward. You want to get to the other track. Right. Exactly. So, granted, when you're thinking about it, a big charger like that, I would have wanted to lock the converter up around 25, 30 pounds. That's just me. But you don't realize that at the time. You're going off of engine sound. You hear our engine come up, and then your adrenaline, and you hit it.
It was like 45 pounds of boost, but the problem was I was still in the fluid coupling side of the converter. So when I locked the converter,
every RPM just shit the bed. Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you were at 18 pounds once the converter locked up, not you were at 18 pounds when you locked the converter. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was at like 45 pounds, and then I hit the lockup button, and it lost 15 to 18 pounds of boost, so it dropped down to like 25, 30, and you can see that in the data log.
You could see it from the media tower. It was like run. It was kind of a slow takeoff, like you said. He kind of eased it out of the gate, so it comes up, and you can see he's starting to like build up, and you're like, oh, this thing is going, and then it's like, and then just wide out. That's why, when he says he back halved it, he means he fucking back halved.
So he went through several nitrous bottles in this event.
Brad? We only went through one 15-pound bottle.
Now that's impressive.
Yeah, they didn't bring any balloons.
Because I need to grow some more balls. That's about it.
I mean, when you go to these events, you bring all your balls and you use all the spray.
Well, I brought 3 bottles. We brought 4.
You're gonna say I brought 3 balls. I was like, this guy.
I brought a spare. But no, that was my first time ever using nitrous. Was on the dyno, and it. I was a lot more confident going into it on, it would have been day 3, at the drag strip. So we upsized the jet I don't want to call it a spool jet, but it was on a manual button, intended for spooling, but the truck spooled up just fine. So we ended up using that single 62 jet the entire day.
Yeah. And you used it over in the quarter-mile heads-up racing. Qualifying, did all right. Hey, enough to qualify, right? Got into...
We qualified fifth.
Yep, fifth, so real solid. Got enough to get into the bracket, so you're in the bracket with the quick 8, which they actually, because 3 of the guys had broken at this point, a bunch of people had just a bye, so it was really a quick 6. And Brad, you lined up against Steven Lucero, who had put down a significant amount more horsepower. Also, just a solid running truck. I got nothing bad to say about Steven Lucero's truck. If you've seen it,
Steven's truck is awesome.
Amazing. Beautiful Cummins. You'd love it, Chris.
Yeah, and he has a beautiful goldish Mega.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a nice truck. Nice, great guys too.
And he
real nice guys.
He qualified second or third. I think third throughout the day. Second. So he was
qualified second.
He was fast.
Yeah.
But you guys, man, what a fucking nail biter of a run. Tell us about that run against Lucero's Mega.
So, like I told Steven after the banquet, I'm like, man, I felt like a dick. I was coming up into the staging lights. I'm like, I don't know where the damn lights are. So we're rolling into the beams trying to find them, and I found him, and I ended up. Luckily, he was staged and ready to go on the first bulb, but I ended up breaking the first and the second bulb, and I ended up treating him by about a tenth of a second. And so, mind you, this is my second ever drag strip pass, and the truck went 11:39 at 126.8.
Wow.
Yeah, and the margin of victory on his side was about eighth of a second, 0.1344 seconds.
Yeah.
And we were side by side the whole race. He got me the first probably 300 feet. And then at the 8th, I started picking up. So the truck ran 749 at 100 in the 8th, and ended up going 1139 at 126. And at the end of the quarter mile, I shit you not, it was maybe half of a hood was all that separated us. My head was at about the B pillar of his truck. I mean, it was that close.
Wow.
Yeah, dude.
Another probably 50 feet. If I'd have, let my balls drop and put the bigger jet in.
And that's all it takes.
It's a lot of what if.
I mean, balls dropping.
When you're at DPC, you also don't know, because we also saw guys blowing up.
Right.
I mean, at this point, we lost 3 guys in qualifying. We lost another guy during the racing. I mean, trucks are breaking left and right around you. So it's like when you say, maybe I should have ran a bigger shot of nitrous. Yeah, maybe.
Right.
Maybe that bigger shot of nitrous would have just put you out of the entire competition.
I mean, right now, it's you. At the end of the day, I mean, we have a couple more days to get through, but your truck stayed in one piece, and it's back home safe and sound, right?
Yeah, the truck, after the entire week of beating it like it owed me money, it drove itself up onto the trailer. It runs just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not hurt.
No, maybe you brought just the right size of balls for the
event. Well, that was the thing that everyone, shouldn't say everyone. My father and I were trying to play conservative, and the 2 other gentlemen on my team were tried to throw the old 136 jet in there on me, and I caught them doing that, so that was interesting. But yeah, it was a fine line to walk of how far do I push it versus where is it going to stay running. Because I could have. We had 3 kits of spray on the truck. I could have put, 3 big ass jets in it, and it would have probably made 1,400 on the dyno. There was that much fuel left.
Sure.
I don't know. It's. I can sit here and say I could have done this, I could have done that, but at the end of the day, to me, keeping the truck running and making over 1,000 horsepower in Denver, almost 1,100 horsepower uncorrected, I can't be upset with that.
Yeah, you're not lying there, man. And you know what? I mean, it's strategy, because it allowed you to go to the cone course, which is something that really beat on the trucks hard. I think harder than it has in past years. And that's because this year they stretched the course out.
2 of them.
Yeah.
That was one hell of a cone course. Let's put it that way.
There were three.
Everyone who was watching got to see the first naturally aspirated Duramax. I'll tell you that. I mean, we made 9 pounds of boost is all the truck made on the cone course at like 4,600 RPM.
You didn't use any nitrous?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I did not. Each straight stretch was 300 feet, and yeah, we took second in that event behind Richard Coker by less than 10 seconds.
Okay.
If I wouldn't have hit a cone on the second corner, or would have remembered I had a trailer hooked up and I had to turn the wheel right to go left, we would have done better. But I'm not going to complain at taking second.
I mean, but that just goes to show, though. I mean, I know you have a lot of experience with towing trailers and things like that, so a lot of that background really helped you in that event. Am I wrong?
I would say you're correct. It also was the standpoint of I'm going to throw this thing into the corner, and hopefully it doesn't roll. Because I came into that last corner hot. I honestly thought it was going to push the ass into the truck out.
Yeah. Yeah,
you can hear it in the video.
And that's an event that had so much more to do with focusing and being smart, and you can't take your time. This is where I think some of the guys played it too conservative this year. They literally crawled through the course, or if they weren't lined up perfect, they change gear, drive forward, line up again, and then do the reverse portion. Yeah. And that murdered time. You got to be willing to hit some cones. But on the same token, you got to be paying attention, because you can't be Conezilla and just eat a whole row of them
out, because you get this point,
Right.
There's like you said before, Brad, there's a balance between the two of knowing how hard to push the truck, how far back to hold back on it. When there's a 10-second gap between you and the next guy, I don't think nitrous in those 2 300-foot straightaways was going to make up 10 seconds.
Absolutely not.
You know what I mean? There's no benefit to that. And you racked up the points. And then I think where you really shined was, of course, on the last day with what the truck is built for. And this is something even the other competitors were calling out, saying, oh, I think that guy from Wisconsin, he's probably going to do pretty good at the sled pull. And fuck yeah, you did good at the sled pull.
I mean, we only won it by I think it was 35 to 40 feet.
Only 35 to 40. All right,
tough track. Tough track. It really was. I talked to you right before you actually had a chance to go out and run, or right before the I think even the numbers were drawn. I was just getting set up. We're going to kick over to what Brad had to say about the track right before his first run on it. I'm here with Brad Sankey. Looking at the dirt, this is the loosest gravel you will ever pull in.
Yeah, this is the worst track I've seen. It's real loose. It's underneath the top soft layer is just real crumbly, dry dirt. No clay, nothing. It's going to be a low horsepower track.
I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark here and say you have the most sled pull experience in the field. Who do you think is going to have a tough time out here?
Everybody. You're going to fight for traction. It hops out the hole at about 30 feet. You can't come out hard on this track.
Boom, and now we're back with Brad, and yeah, not that pretty. It was really dry. It was really loose. It was really sandy. There's a lot of big rocks in it. Tell us about the difference of pulling at DPC compared to pulling back home.
Well, the Charger did not want to light, and I even tried to use nitrous. But when I turned it on, I had a leak at the bottle. I didn't have a wrench to tighten that. But trying to get that big Charger spool at elevation, it was like 9,100 feet density altitude. It was really hot. It was really dry. It was like 90 degrees is what my truck told me on the Banks data logger. So, yeah, there's not much air there. And then pulling the track itself, the track was super, super dry. There was not much in it. It was all just dirt. There was no clay content in it, nothing to keep it firm. So as soon as you broke through that little bit of crust, per se, that was there, there was nothing. Good tracks are not dust storms. So,
do you think the track got worse as the day went on? Do you think it would have been tougher if you would have been further back in the order?
that's hard to say because it seemed like the more trucks that made it over that like 100, 115 foot area where there was kind of a little bump that was putting everyone into a hop, that kind of seemed to smooth out as the day went on. I think we were fourth out of 8 total trucks that were actually still running. But yeah, the difference seemed to be that I think the only other competitor that had sled pulled was Matt Meyer in his OBS Ford. So when a truck starts to hop, when you sled pull often, you know, okay, I have to unlock the converter, or do I give it more beans? Well, this one was an unlock the converter and pedal the truck. But then you also know once the truck starts to settle down, you lay right back into it to plant the truck. And it seems like guys would either lift all the way, or like Steven Lucero, he had probably 30, 40-pound balls, and as the whole truck came off the ground multiple times.
Lucero and his crew, very little sled pull experience. Their plan was legit, get out of the hole hard and then give it the nitrous right away. I can't make this shit up. I didn't record it. I heard him saying it and just kept walking. Yeah.
Yep, that was legitimately their plan. And they did it. Yep. Didn't work well, but they did it. Yeah, that was definitely not a track where nitrous would help anybody. There was nothing there to hold anything.
Yeah. Yeah, but you still did it. You still crushed it at the sled pull. Showed the guys from all across the country what we do here in the Midwest. I love to see it. The truck ran great.
What we do. You're a great sled puller. I just want to point that out. Brad, you did a great job. Don't listen to him.
Hey, man, you still kicked ass overall at the competition. I definitely think you put a really nice highlight there for the Duramax guys out there. Seeing your truck that's not a beauty queen. Brad's rusty LLY is it's got rust everywhere, man. It looks rough, but it performed like a champ every single day of DPC, and that's what I was really excited to see. Brad, if you had...
That's weight reduction, man. That's weight reduction is all that is.
If you're going to talk to guys this summer, Brad, about maybe guys who want to get into DPC in the future, what advice will you be giving them?
Overbuild the drive line, because I can tell you, not having to be that guy that's working on my truck 24/7 at DPC was awesome. We got to actually spend time and enjoy the area instead of working till 2, 4, 6, whatever time in the morning.
Yeah.
Overbuild everything, basically. I mean, you don't want to be having an engine failure, a trans failure. You don't want to blow a drive shaft, because I don't know where you're going to get one. Things like that. Go with a moderately sized set of compounds. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Go with something that works, something that's proven. Either a VGT F400 or S3 S4 compound. They work great. If you got the money for it, you can go Garrett. But I don't know many people in this area win the lottery. So
I mean, let me ask you this, Brad. I mean, check-in was check-in, and I know, for you to just drive out there, and you don't have the resources generally to get on a dyno a day or two in advance or hook up to a trailer. But do you think that maybe getting there a day or two in advance and just driving the truck at that altitude to kind of get a feel for it, you think that would have helped you at all?
I don't know if it would have helped. I mean, we drove. So when we showed up we arrived late Saturday night. And we dropped the gooseneck and the truck off in the parking lot and drove to the place we were staying at. The next morning, we were wrenching on it at 8 in the morning, putting a third stage of nitrous on it. But we drove it to the meet and greet on Sunday night at ATS. And then Monday, so once you're there, you can't trailer your truck unless it's broken. So we drove it, obviously, to Red Rocks Amphitheater, which that alone was a learning experience. for one, I don't have a ton of seat time on this turbo and converter. I just don't. So trying to learn how I can and can't drive it took me a couple days. So it could be beneficial. I don't think it would definitely be. I don't think it would be the deciding factor.
Sure, fair enough. Awesome, man. Well, Brad, we appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your experiences about being a Diesel Power Challenge and competing at one of the most respected events in the country and in the industry. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Calibrated Power, PPE, My Shop, K&D Service, Kill Devil Diesel, Gander Automotive Group, Garin Transmission, Extra G Performance. There's probably more in there that I'm forgetting, but
no worries,
thanks,
man.
Guys. Thanks, sponsors. It makes this doable. Definitely helps make this doable.
Absolutely. Well, Brad, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Listeners, for today, this has been Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
Thanks for listening.
If I see y'all out together and you hear me yell, "Nutty Buddy," just know